back, everybody. Sarcasm Speaks. Jared and Bob here, and we got a special guest, Dan Murphy, as you can see on the YouTube if you're watching. By the way, don't forget to subscribe over there. But yeah, so Dan, you've heard me talk about him. I think I talked about you in at least one podcast, maybe another one prior. But so you're my window guy.
Yeah, Bob was right. I wanted to make sure the 3-day right of rescission passed before I hopped on here. So here I fucking am, you know? I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
So
what's going on?
Obviously, you sold me my windows. I met, we talked, I met the other dude from the other company that shall remain nameless at this point, because they're way too fucking expensive. We'll give a plug to Right Window, though. They're great. If you can request Dan, request him, because I was literally about to say he's the man, and then I stopped myself because, I mean, Dan the man. It's kind of
a little bit. I will say though, having Bob on that was nice. I feel like I owe them, like you and the other dude that was on. It's like it's pretty rare people know what windows cost nowadays. Most people are like you, dude, where it's like 24 windows, you think 16, 18 grand, $800 a window. It's pretty reasonable. So when they threw out like the top of the line window and they threw out 45 grand, I was like, yeah, these kids fucking get it, you know? Which is a lot.
Yeah, it's insanely a lot. That's like I said it during that episode. That's how much my truck cost.
Yep, but dude, that's what they cost. And honestly, the only frame of reference I have is my mother. She got new windows. I don't know what like the financing deal was, but like I know what she pays a month and I know how many months she's got it for. So yeah, it's fucking crazy though, because you just think windows. Because like I even looked at one of ours was broken. I'm like, oh fuck.
You get pounded even harder when it's one window, you know.
Well, I was gonna say, but you look at it, you can't just do one. There's 3 right in a row. So
right.
I got a guy.
I mean, this is
we're gonna see what happens. We're gonna see what happens here. I'm not the main decision maker as to what happens here.
Also, do you guys have to go through like HOA stuff?
I don't know. I think they probably have like a spec sheet.
Yeah.
But it's like any window person, if I say replace this, it should be fine. But no, it has to go through fucking
right.
The HOA has to approve it, and then it's like, oh well, what's the fire rating on that? It's a fucking window. Like,
yeah.
What the hell are you talking about?
Yeah, it's a pain with those associations, condos, anything like that. It's usually just, luckily we're pretty good, right? They want insurance. They want to know that everything's insured. They're going to say replace it like for like. If you have 6 over 6 grids, it has to stay. It's all that kind of shit. But it is what it is. But yeah, if you don't need to buy windows, don't. You know what I mean? It's not a fun, sexy thing. Kitchens, bathrooms, they're enjoyable. You know what I mean? They're fun, sort of. Getting a new truck, it's good. It's all blowing money, but when window time comes, it sucks. But you gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah. So yeah, obviously that's how we met, right? Just because you sold me some windows. But I think actually you have like a pretty cool story. So I should have led with this too, I guess, by the way, not just Dan Murphy, the guy who sold me windows, but you have a podcast. So you're from the Unapologetically Me podcast, which is great. I've listened to a bunch of episodes. So tell us a little bit about like you and like your story and like how you got to where you are now. Cause I'll ask more questions once you get there. It's tough for me because I know the story, but
Right. No, I appreciate it. Yeah, no. So I'm 30. Well, I'm not 29. I'm 30 years old. I grew up in Drake, Mass, right on the lower line. So that Merrimack Valley, it's a good suburb. I never hurt for anything. We definitely weren't like wealthy, but I had a good upbringing, great parents, still together to this day. I have one brother. Things were good, but I like to party and get fucked up and do all that. And so in my late teens, early even into mid 20s, was just drugs and alcohol. To the point, of, because you call it heroin or fentanyl, whatever it is, it was pissing dirty for fentanyl, all that. But yeah, so I was about as bad as it gets when it comes to that. So, I don't want to go down the whole rabbit hole. Anyone who's in the program, they know they're called war stories, right? Everyone has them. But yeah, a lot of my early 20s into my mid 20s were definitely just consumed by drugs and alcohol, getting high. It didn't get in much legal trouble or anything like that, but it was tough. It was tough. But I completely did it to myself. So anyone listens to this suffering from addiction, you can get out of it. I'm not a huge proponent in it being a disease. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. All I know is that when I made bad decisions, my life sucked, and now my life's pretty cool. When I met my wife, I actually met her in treatment. We got booted out together. I got caught in the woman's sober house, hanging out. So I got booted out. I ended up fucking marrying that girl. So it sounds like a nightmare situation, but it did work out pretty good. Her father is involved in real estate. He owns quite a bit of real estate, which is nice. So we started, buying real estate together, even when I was broke, because he has access to investors, which is pretty cool. So I was very, very, very fortunate. People ask me sometimes, like, how do you go from here to there? Like, what's the number one trait? And I go, for me, luck. You know what I mean? Luck. Now, it's the truth.
Yeah. Right place, right time.
Luck, and you have to make right place, right time. You definitely have to take advantage of it, work hard, make good decisions, day in and day out. But yeah, we got started in that in 2019. And now I don't know how many units I own. I probably own 20 something buildings, 100 and something units, but we sort of transitioned into a different model where I buy properties. I work directly with behavioral health operators, and I'll buy the property and lease it back to a like any sort of behavioral health operator, preferably like a rehab, because that's all insurance funded. It's big money, but also just sober living. So someone wants to open a sober house. Maybe they don't have a lot of capital. They don't understand the real estate. The real estate market's insane right now. So we'll go in, we'll fund it, we'll fix it up, maybe fund a little bit of their furniture, and basically just hand them the keys to turnkey business. And then we get pretty good returns on that. So that is sort of how I've, made my money. I definitely do still sell windows. I don't do it for fun, but it's an enjoyable job. You make pretty good money doing that. It's pretty chill. So yeah, that's what I like to do. Buy real estate, trying to get rich, selling windows. I enjoy it, bringing value. That's what I'm about, dude.
Yeah. I mean, so that's pretty cool. And I know you said you recently started getting into like the, like leasing back to the sober house and sober living and things like that.
Yep.
How many of those have you gotten into so far?
So we bought 6 in Q1 of this year.
Wow.
So I bought 6 in the last 90 days. They take a little bit to get up and running, though. We have a rehab program. So it's a 36-bed residential women's, treatment center that I say we, but I don't run it, right? I bought it out in Athol, Massachusetts, right? For $250,000. We bought this property for. It's 12,000 square feet. We filled it up as a rooming house with 30 rooms. We were averaging like $722 a room. Now, you remember all their utilities are included and stuff like that. So that had a rent roll of almost $20,000, right? And you can do the math. My mortgage was, even with the private money, my mortgage was like, $2,500 a month. But there's a lot of headaches, right? When you own a rooming house, it's a fucking nightmare, right? It's a sober house, only like no one's getting drug tested. You know what I mean? Like that's sort of how it goes.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of work, and the utility bills were high, and a lot of people didn't pay, and you're spending a ton of money on lawyers. So we were making good money there, but I was able to lease it to a company out of Gardner, Massachusetts called Gamma, which is fantastic. So they took the property over with a 20-year lease, and they pay a lot.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Wow.
They pay a lot. So it was life-changing for me, for sure.
Yeah. So I know you're kind of like moving, it sounds a little bit more towards that type of style, but so when you do that, do you buy a property and get it set up before you get the commitment from the behavioral health organization? Or did they reach out to you and be like, hey, we're looking for something, like, do you have anything for us, type of deal? Basically, do you have to take that risk up front that like you buy this and hope that you can find a behavioral health organization to fill it?
Yeah, so it's sort of a mix. That's a really good question. So we bought our best, most profitable property was definitely that one. And to be honest, like the numbers on it are like, they're getting reimbursed Gamma, hundreds of dollars a day, because they do a lot of work, right? They got like, clinicians on staff, and it's like 30. It created 30 jobs. But like that property I bought for $250, we had to do a $750,000 build out. So I'm all into it for $1 million. So my mortgage is $6,000 a month plus insurance. Yeah. And they pay me $25,000 a month. $25,000 a month, right? So it's like, holy shit. So obviously my brain was like, I should do more of that. Now it's not as easy as sober living because there's a lot of zoning. You got to get licensed by the state of Massachusetts. It's just not like, oh, let's go buy a single family house in Nashua and find a sober house operator, you know. But to answer your question, that one we bought and it fell into our lap. And then we kind of got the idea, like, wait a second. And then because of my fortunate or unfortunate past, I sort of have connections with people from sober houses because I've fucking lived in them, you know. So I started reaching out to people and realized, wow, a lot of these sober living operators, they lease properties. So yes, we definitely do take the majority of the upfront risk, but that's why we're able to get really good lease prices. Nothing like that particular deal. But yeah, we get like probably at least 65% to 100% higher than what would be market, because they can put quite a few people in there and they're providing a lot of value. So what I typically do is I made a website and I'll send out I'll go on any like oh, these are sort of the secrets of the trade here, but fuck it. I'll go on like mash.com, which is the Massachusetts Alliance of Sober Housing, and I'll find all the state certified houses in Massachusetts. So I know they're professionally operated, they're certified by the state, and I'll send them an email and I'll basically say, hey, my name's Dan, go through the whole pitch. This is what I do. I'm looking to buy you a house, fix it up, and lease it back to you. It's a pretty easy sales pitch compared to going in your house and being like, hey, Jared, can I get 22 grand for windows? It's like, hey, can I buy you a fucking house and just let you run a business? So it's like the sales pitch is easy, and we've definitely had to kind of gear back what we do because I'm getting flooded with calls. Everyone wants me to buy them a house and open. I mean, there's such a demand for it, unfortunately. But yeah, that's kind of what we do is find the people first, get to know them, see what they're about, make sure they already own one or two, get a letter of intent, get a commitment from them, and then buy the property. But luckily now in Worcester, Mass, Nashua, a lot of these areas, like because my name is getting out there, and by getting out there, I mean in the behavioral health small sober house space, not even on like a regional level or let alone a national level. But like people kind of know who we are and sharing stuff on Facebook. So at this point, even if someone left or they stopped paying, it wouldn't be that difficult for me to find someone else, because a lot of traditional landlords, they won't rent to sober living, because if you don't understand addiction, you don't understand how it works, you think like, you want to fill my house with a bunch of drug addicts, which is reasonable, but it's not really how it goes. If it's done right, the lease is triple net, so they cover all utilities. Plus, part of the program is for the tenants to clean the house. When I lived in there, it'd be like Tuesdays, Dan cleans the bathroom. Thursdays, he's got the kitchen. So they're really well-run programs if they're done right, which means they're great tenants, you know?
Right.
I've heard of a lot of similar things about even Section 8 housing, because if it's set up correctly, Section 8's great for the property owner because they know they're getting the check from whatever the entity is. I don't know how exactly how it works, but it doesn't matter. Whereas some people look at it and go, ooh, Section 8, all they're going to do is fuck the place up and beat it to hell. And it's like, not always, man. Not if it's like, not if it's done correctly.
No, you're absolutely right. And that's why like Section 8 is rock solid, because it's not going anywhere. It's actually less risky than what I'm doing. It's less profitable, but it's less risky because that's not going anywhere, right? Like Section 8 housing, people who are getting government assistance, it doesn't matter, Biden, Trump, me, Jared, doesn't matter who the fucking president is, that's what it is. Same thing. People don't go, oh my God, the interest rates are high, I'm going to stop shooting dope, right? Like there's always going to be a need. You know what I mean? Alcoholics don't go, holy shit, have you seen Prime? Like it doesn't work that way. So it's kind of a rock solid business model as far as the demand goes. Now there's obviously risks associated with it. We try not to like grossly overpay for buildings, because we know in 5 years, 10 years, this particular person might not want to do this anymore. They might leave, or shit, they could relapse, right? I mean, life is crazy, but you're absolutely right. Section 8 is rock solid, but you got to play by their rules, right? And then you get the government in this and get rid of the lead, get rid of this. So it's a catch-22, you know?
Yeah. I mean, so I actually, my previous career, I was working for nonprofits, and my company that I worked for contracted with DCF. So I worked a lot with youth that were just involved in the system. So I was in and out of a lot of group homes. So I know the type of idea. I've never frequented like some of the sober living areas because I worked with the kids, right? So a lot of times the parents were in wherever they needed to be. And I was with the kids, but I've worked with a lot of kids that are lived in group homes. And I've been in and out of those places, and some of those places aren't great, right? Like they're not nice. Like they're not kept up well, unfortunately. So, it sounds like someone like you comes along that actually puts some money into these things and actually, cares, is a lot better than you know, some of the other things that I've seen, at least in some of these places.
Right.
So it's cool. It's cool there that like, you
Yeah,
have
there's a
that
lot of money to be made in that. Yeah, because that's kind of the problem. We've run into it. There are other people like me who are doing this, and you know, one particular group, I won't even name them, but we have a lot of their, I guess you could call them clients, whatever, customers who are kind of coming over to us because they take advantage, because a lot of people who run sober living, they have a big heart and they want to do it, and people will just keep jacking up the rent and jacking up the rent, because it's like, you know, if you run a sober living program, you got 20 guys, yeah, there's a lot of turnover, but you know, you got those like core 7, 8, 9 people who've been there a long time trying to get their life together, and you know, to just be like, yeah, I'm letting go of this. You know, I mean, it's business. It is what it is. But those people are like, shit, where do I go? So they get taken advantage of. Plus, a lot of sober living guys, you know, they're not like business people. So I make sure I spell the deal out. Like, yeah, we're going to get a good return on our money. Like, I'm never going to do a deal where I lose. But like, how much do you realistically want to make per month? You know, if they're like, I'm happy if I can make 4 or 5 grand a month doing this, let me show you exactly how we can do this based on what you charge per week, how many guys you can get in there, blah, 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 blah. And you know, it's got to make sense for both sides. And I want it to win long term. Like for me to hit a home run on a 5-year lease and then they bounce, like you want this to be passive. You want it to be residual. You want it to sit there, all the mortgage to pay it off. So when I'm older, I can be rich as fuck, you know, like not just, oh, we made a bunch of money in 3, 4, 5 years and now it's
right.
gone.
It's not
And
like
I'm stuck with
a
building.
pump and dump scheme, you know, like this is the long
Correct.
haul. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
because not as easy to fill, you know?
Yeah. So oddly enough, like years ago, one of the girls that I dated like in college, her dad was in real estate, and he told me once, he was like, the best thing you could ever do is get invested in real estate. And I'm like 22 years old at the time, and I'm like, yeah, dude, I don't give a fuck. Like that's stupid, right? Because he owned a bunch of properties all in Somerville. Um, they were from Burlington, and he, you know, God knows, I don't know if he still owns them, but he had like 2 families, 3 families, all that. I mean, he could have turned around and sold them all now and made, you know, gajillions of dollars. Because I think he probably bought them in like the 70s or the 80s when they were like, you know, 40 grand for a house, and they're
Right.
probably over $1 million now easily. But it's one of those things that like I wish I knew about sooner, right? Like so my grandparents died when I was probably, I don't know, it was 2015 was when the last one died, and they had their house that was just available. And someone I was talking to, like just like a guy like that I worked with or whatever, was like, dude, you should buy your grandmother's house. And it was in Medford at the time in 2015. It was before really the market got like out of control. And so my aunt and uncle were going to sell it, and they listed it on the market, I think for like 510 at the time, which now God knows how much they get for it now. But it was one of those where, like, again, at that time I was probably like 23 ish. Yeah, I think I was 23. And I'm like, I can't afford a $500,000 house. Right. And then, like, again, the guy at work was like, well, work something out with your aunt and uncle. Like, don't go through the bank, like, pay them every month. Like, do that. Like, instead of paying a mortgage to a bank every month, like, make a payment to your aunt and uncle, like, over X amount of time and all this. And I was in grad school at the time, so I'm not working full time. I'm in school. Like, and I was like, I couldn't make it work. But now here I am, you know, however many years later, was that 8 years later? And I'm like, fuck, man, like if I could have found a way to pull that off, like I would have been sitting on a literal gold mine.
So
Yeah, and that's the thing is, oh, go ahead, Bob.
Oh, no, I was going to say, so there is another like important thing with, you know, the way that it sounds like you do things, Dan, because so I own a gym and we go through the process of like trying to lease a space, whatever, buy a space, whatever we can pull off. And then there's a very, very big difference between a landlord who owns a building and a landlord who owns buildings. And you got to be very clear about what you want. So it's like, because I had the same opportunity to buy, actually, I might have been able to just have it, but it was my grandfather's house. But there's no way that I would have been able to be a landlord at my grandfather's house. So I was like, no, that doesn't make any actual sense. But if you're someone who owns buildings or buys properties, all plural, then it's a little bit easier to do this stuff.
100%, 100%. And that's because the reason we're able to go, because people go, oh my God, you bought 6 houses in 90 days. How did you do that? Why are you selling windows? Like, do we have access to investors? Right. That's like the key. That's like, you know what I mean? You got to be smart. You got to put a business plan together. You got to take care of it. But, at the end of the day, once you have access to those investors and you can get capital to buy stuff, now the money part of it's gone. It's not about money. Now you can focus on like how to get it done. Whereas it's just such a drag being like you said, you couldn't really, there's too much brain fog in 2015. You're like, I can't afford a $500,000 house. That's like Robert Kiyosaki 101. Like the poor people go, I can't afford it. The rich people go, how can I get it done? Right. You could do seller financing, put 5% down, get a 3-year mortgage with them at 7 or 8% interest and do what's called a bullet. So in 3 years, no matter what you owe them, because in Medford, even 3 years later, you could have just refinanced that property and paid them off. Right. In hindsight, now the property's probably worth $850,000.
Yeah, easily.
But Bob, let me ask you a question. Go a little bit more in depth when you say one landlord or one property versus multiple. Do you mean as far as like ability to grow or just like how they operate?
No, it's just how these people operate. It's when you are a landlord and that's it. No, I'm on the other end of it, obviously, because I don't own shit right now. But what I've noticed from a landlord versus a landlord who owns like multiple things, the ones who only do it themselves, it's a lot of work on that one person.
Right.
So, they are like, oh, the toilet's kind of fucked up. All right, I'm a firefighter. I'll be there tomorrow morning. Like,
right.
So like that's just like sort of the differentiation that a lot of people like don't seem to make. Like, so because to spin it back to gyms, because that's what I'm actually familiar with instead of just speaking out of my ass. A lot of people say there's no sense in owning 2 gyms. You should either own 1 gym or you should own 5 gyms, because anything else in between is too fucking chaotic, because you either own a gym or you own gyms. So, I know at least with commercial properties, it seems like anyone that owns properties seem to have things go a little bit easier for them.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like my father-in-law owns 500 units, right? So he's got a 5-man property management team. So like there's a few different ways to do it. You can be the mom and pop landlord. You can, and basically, like you said, yeah, you're going out and you're funding everything. So when the heating system blows, it's like, shit, I'm a firefighter. Let me get my check and try to fix it. Whereas as you start to grow, you can hire a property management company, which is nice. But, real estate's a long-term game. As you scale it, you can make a lot of money. But a lot of people don't want to put 75 grand down, buy a property. And yes, it's a great long-term move. But if you hire a property management company and they're taking 10%, you're not left over with a lot of money, but you are now running it professionally, even on a small scale. But you're right. Most people don't do that. They just try to handle it themselves. They get overwhelmed. They're undercapitalized, and then they're screwed, because as you grow, yeah, the risk starts to grow. But as you start to get cash flow and then the equity of the property starts to grow, it's like, oh shit, the heating system over here went. Like, regardless of if you can pay for it with the operating account, you have like, you just have all these equity lines open. Oh, we're going to be closing on a building in, it's like, oh, we're going to close on a building in 30 days. The investors are going to give us the money. Like, we'll just replenish it from the operating account with what they give us for that. And then we'll figure that out. And there's just so many ways to move money around and play the game that you're absolutely right. Like a $10,000 thing like means nothing to me compared to, let alone a guy being like, oh, my toilet. Like, who gives a fuck? Just send someone by and go take care of it. You're absolutely right. It's tough.
Yeah. So how hard is it, do you think, to make that leap from like the mom and pop to like running the plurality of all the businesses? Right? Like say Bob and I, because we actually used to. So Bob and I used to own a house in Mansfield. It was a duplex. It was one side of the duplex. And we kicked around and hemmed and hawed about like keeping it and renting it out. But neither one of us is very handy, and we don't know a lot of people in the area. And, my wife and I we bought this house that, you've been to. And so I needed the capital at least for that and all this stuff. So, you know, all the way everything shook out is we ended up selling it, right? But like, so say like Bob and I wanted to buy a property somewhere, right? And how hard would it be for like someone like him and I, or two people like him and I, to go from like, oh, we own one spot to like, oh, now we own, you know, 8 apartments type of deal.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like it's all relative, right? Like growing big, like when you say like, oh yeah, you want to grow big, I'm like, okay, he wants to get to 150 units, but it's all relative, right? So you're like, oh no, if we own one house, we want to get to 8 units. Like when you just honestly, what you're doing right now is smart. Get around people who are doing something way bigger. When you hang out with people who own 500, all of a sudden getting to 10, they're like, oh, you just want to get to 10? Like, oh, okay, yeah, let me show you. So it's like it's all relative, but it's tough right now with the interest rates, but the property itself is going to be the key. So like buying a property and then like burring it, they call it, you know, like buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. That's like a bigger pockets 101 thing. So, you know, you guys pull your money up, you buy a property, you get it to cash flow. And then, you know, a year later or, you know, 18 months later, hopefully if you got a good deal, right? That's the key. You get a good deal on the property, buy it under market, you refinance it, then you can pull all your money out that you put into it. So you could sort of keep recycling the 80 or $100,000 you guys put down, or 60 grand, whatever it is, to keep buying more. So then you go, oh, I could buy, you know, I could refinance the property every year. And in 20 years, we could own 20 properties. Average of a 3-family or 4-family, there's 60, 80 units. 97% of landlords in the world own 3 units or less. So it's very rare. People like, oh, fucking landlords ruin the world. Not really. Most landlords fucking inherit it from their dad. You know, like that's the reality of it. They're not really cut out for it. But yeah, no, the key is to find good deals, get around people who know what they're doing. Don't worry about the cash flow. It takes so long to get rich off cash flow. But like if you bought that property in Medford, say you had, it coulda, shoulda, woulda, but I'm just saying, like by now you could have refinanced and pulled out 150,000. And then here's where it gets hairy. What do you do with that 150? Do you go redo your whole fucking kitchen and have Anderson come in and put windows in and go on vacation to Aruba? Or do you take that 150 grand and you use 250, use 100 of it to put more down payments down, plus have 50 in the operating account to get it going? Now you get 2 more properties. One works out, one's not that great. Now you're able to refinance. That's how the snowball starts. And then you can become a big landlord where you kind of have like, you just have a bunch of equity in the properties, you know, and small things don't crush you. And because most people, they buy it, it doesn't work out, they get stressed, they're not prepared, they don't have lawyers, they don't know how to evict people, they're just not prepared for the fact that it's a business. It's not a difficult one, but it's really not passive, it's active. It's an active business. If you think getting into real estate is just going to be like this easy fucking thing, it's not. Like nothing else, you know. It's difficult.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot that goes into it.
Yeah, but it's doable. It's proven.
Yeah, I mean, people do it, right? Tons of people do it. So
just about every successful person I know has gotten into it in some capacity.
Yeah, that's the other thing too, that I find it really interesting that real estate is like something that people do to make more money, right? It's like people have like their careers or whatever it is that they do. And I feel like a lot of times, like they make a shit ton of money off of real estate in whatever means, right? Whether it's flipping properties or whether it's buying and renting and doing whatever. Like I said, the girl that I dated back in college, like her dad was a retired firefighter and he used to just like do real estate too. Like it was just, you know, I met a guy on the golf course not too long ago. He was an accountant, just regular like CPA, like just does accounting shit, right? Like makes a decent living doing that. But he was telling me about how like he flips properties, right? So I know flipping properties is a little bit different, but it's all in that real estate realm. So it's interesting and it's funny to me that like people that do real estate kind of like do it. I don't want to say on the side. On the side isn't a good way to describe it, but like in addition to, I think is like, you know what I mean? Like someone's an accountant and they flip properties, or someone's like a firefighter and they're a landlord, like things like that, right? Like it's interesting that
100%.
It seems to always work out that way, and I don't really know why.
Because without any capital, you can't get into real estate. Like it has got to come from somewhere, unless you are like super linked up with people and you know how to gather investors and get them their money back without working. you can't do these things unless you work.
Yeah. Yeah.
No,
If you don't
the
have
reason-
it, you got to
the
get it from
reason-
somewhere.
It's true. And when you're the reason all rich people get into real estate, regardless of like, it's different. Like, I'm trying to get rich doing real estate. That's rare. That's why I'm in a niche. And like Bob said, I have access to investors, and I'm finding some sort of a niche that can beat, you know, these behavioral health places pay a lot more than traditional traditional tenants. So you can, there's room there. Like, and I'm grinding, and I got a website, and this is what I do, and I'm taking on risk. There's always risk, but super rich people, they make their money doing whatever. It could be an athlete. It could be like the guy Alex Hormozy. I know you own a gym. You probably heard of him. He did gym launch. He made fucking $100 million. What they do is they pool it in there for tax reasons, right? You're gonna get smoked by Uncle Sam. So what they do is they just pool it into real estate because you get massive tax breaks, and that could be a 3-hour podcast in itself, but that's the reality of why every rich guy goes, where am I going to put my money? Well, there's the stock market, there's crypto, there's this, or I can buy a fucking 200-unit building. Alex Rodriguez owns 20,000 apartments. He doesn't give a shit about the cash flow. He's just protecting all that money. He's smart. Now, it's not a big pile of cash that's going to get fucking handed to his kids and they're going to blow it all. They have this massive portfolio of Section 8 housing. That's what he does, low-income housing. He said his average apartment costs $1,000 a month, because now all that money is protected, because that's like a 1031 exchange, right? This is a pretty basic real estate thing. If you buy a 3-family and then you sell it, you can opt into what's called a 1031 exchange. So say you buy it for 200, you sell it for 400, a few years later, you do what's called a 1031 exchange. You have 180 days to roll that money back into another property, and you don't pay taxes. The taxes just get deferred, so you don't pay capital gains. And the reason the government does this is because they don't fucking want you to sell your property and take your money and bounce, because you're not paying property taxes anymore, right? So they're trying to incentivize you to buy more real estate. And you can just 1031 exchange until you're fucking dead, and then you never have to pay the taxes. And that's what people do, right? So that's the game. That's the game.
Yeah. Yeah. You hear that all the time, right? There's all these like loopholes and shit that people do. And I guess that's one of them.
Yeah, they say don't get.
Well, the thing is, they're not even loopholes. It's the tax law. You just need to know how to use it. So that's the other thing. If you want to do this shit, get a lawyer, get an accountant, ones that actually know what the fuck they're doing.
Yeah. There's truth to that, and that's it. The tax code is a big one, and all of us, we all pay more in federal income tax than you do anything else. It's your biggest expense, but nobody talks about it. I have a TikTok on that. Nobody talks about it. No one gives a shit. It's more than your groceries. It's more than your health insurance. It's a lot. I mean, assuming you're not making, $30,000 a year, but once you're up over 100 grand, 150 grand, you're making 200 grand, you're paying so much in taxes, and forget about it. Like the professional athletes, that's why they do it. They say like, I think it's like a Grant Cardone thing. Don't get your $1 million checks and buy Lamborghinis. It's like, get it, invest in real estate, and then the cash flow that it spits off, that's what you buy the fancy stuff with, because that million you made is protected. And real estate is a very safe investment. If you're looking to like crush it on cash flow, like we're trying to do, it's a little riskier. It's more difficult. But if you're already really wealthy and you can put 40% down on a building, you're just parking your money there in a big complex. There's a huge property management company that runs the whole thing. It's pretty safe. Like in 20 years, like it's just not going to go down,
Right.
It's not gonna
Yeah. Yeah. And even if it does go down like a 2008 or, what we're coming on pretty soon, if according to some people, it'll go back up afterwards, right? Like it doesn't stay down. Like it goes down, but then it comes back up.
Correct.
So
it's like 401k, same thing,
Yeah.
It's like if you're looking at it from a long enough time horizon, it doesn't fucking matter. I don't care what the real estate market's doing,
So does that weigh on you at all? Like this whole like impending doom of like another crash, like a 2008 that's coming in? Like, does it bother you? Like, does it even matter? Like, do you feel like you're kind of protected from it, or do you even think it's going to happen? Right? Like you're way more involved in real estate than I am. Like you might be like, dude, I don't see no crash coming.
I mean, this is kind of dark, but it's the truth. I hope it happens. Like that would be a perfect scenario for me. What the price of real estate goes.
I would say everything would go on sale.
Yeah.
Everything goes on sale. Everybody's upside down. Desperate people. They need to get rid of their properties. Hey, here I am with cash. You want 300? I'll give you fucking 200. We'll close in 14 days. Here you go. Boom. Like that's What do I care? I have a 20-year lease with Gamma. They're paying me 25 grand a month for 20 years. What do I fucking care if the building goes like this? Like, it's irrelevant to me. I know in
Right.
20 years, right? So it's
Right.
the same sort of thing with the sober living operators. And again, that's why I like the business model that I'm in, because it doesn't matter. 2008 happens, blah, 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 blah. It's $180 a week to live in a sober house. Like, that's not going to change. Like, it's just not going to go anywhere. Section 8, low income housing, that's not going to go anywhere. That's why Airbnb is a little riskier. You buy $1 million house in Miami, when the economy goes like this, you know what I mean? People like you and your wife, you might go, you know what? We're not going to Miami this year. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So
That's a good point, right? Because the real estate crashes really only affect you if you are selling, I guess, right? Like you said, like if you're flipping. So yeah. I mean, your buddy John, right, on the podcast that's with you,
yeah,
he flips, right?
he does.
How come you don't do anything like that? And I mean, I know like it's kind of a dumb question because, like you said, obviously, like more recently you found the niche of where you're at now. But prior to that, how come you were more interested in like the landlord process versus flipping?
Well, I mean, there's a few different answers to that. One is I like the long-term benefit. I like the tax breaks that you get with investing in long-term real estate. But the reality is he's a fucking carpenter and he can do the work. I can't compete. I can't compete. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like where I can compete is like, if you're looking at a house and I'm looking at a house, I'm going to lease it to a sober house. I'm bringing cash. I can close fast. I can pay the same amount as you. I can dominate you. I can't dominate in that market because it's like, you know, I have to pay a guy to fucking do windows. You know what I mean? I have to pay a guy to do this. He can do a lot of that. Now, you know, if you want to scale, this guy's flipping 100 houses a year. Obviously, they're not doing all the bathrooms, right? There's different levels to that game, but that's what he's good at. That's his bread and butter. He does some other stuff too on the side, but yeah, that's why like it's just too hard for me to compete. The time it's going to take for me to learn how to do that, it's just too much time lost with what I'm doing. I'm a huge believer in sticking with one plan. Like I just want to be like the biggest owner of sober house beds in New England, maybe even the United States. That's what I don't want to actually run the programs, but like if I just hyper focus on that,
Yeah.
I'll win. Say no to all. There's other great opportunities out there, but they're your opportunity. They're not mine. I'm going to become the best at this. And that's like, I think a lot of times successful people is they get in, they own a gym, and then they get in and they try to, you know, they own a rooming house, right? They're trying to invest a little bit in real estate, and then they want to flip a house. And then their buddy, you know, they're getting
Then they
into
want a
crypto and
restaurant.
yeah, and they fucking own a restaurant. It's like, dude, you're a, you know, you got a, you know, it's, how do they say it? Like your hole is 50 feet wide and an inch deep. You know what I mean? Make it an inch wide and 1,000 feet deep and hit the fucking coal or the oil or the gold or whatever you want to say. You know, I'm a big believer in that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. And that's a fantastic point that your buddy's a carpenter, so he can just do that shit himself. But I also do imagine
But it
like
is.
that flipping game is way more volatile, right? Because then that's affected by the market directly, right? Like your properties aren't, if everything crashes, doesn't matter. Your property's worth 20% less. What do you care? Like you said, you got someone in there leasing it. Whereas he goes to flip something, and then, you know, if it takes, 90 days to get all the work done, and within that time it drops by 15%, well, shit, now he's going to lose money on the sale, right? Like it's definitely more risk in that way, I can see.
100%. And it's sexier because you can make money fast. You can make 80 grand in 90 days. You know,
Well, that's a TV shows. That's HGTV, right? Like all those guys that come in and they're like, "Oh, we did all this and we sold it and we made 75 grand in 90 days," and everyone's like, "It's glamorized, right? It's on TV."
never goes that way. Construction's tough, dude. Like, you know, like you're getting windows done. Like all jokes aside, like you want a company that's gonna come in there and like bang out 18 windows, like when they say they're gonna do it, and if they fuck it up, they're gonna come back and they're gonna fix it. You're gonna pay for that shit, man. It's just like that's just the way it is, and with kitchens and bathrooms, and that's the way it is, right? They say there's good, fast, and cheap, and you get to pick two, and that's very true. You know, you want good and fast, it ain't gonna be cheap. You want good and cheap, it ain't gonna be fast, and that's usually like a friend.
Right.
You know, you know what I mean? You want fast and cheap, it's not gonna be good. So like, what do you kind of wanna do. But if you can do it yourself, now it can be cheap and good, and you can control the timeline on it. So that's why guys get into flipping, and they have a huge advantage because they can bid on buildings that I normally wouldn't. They can go a little bit higher. Guys like John, he does have access to investors, so I don't even have that advantage over him, right? He just has a huge advantage in that space.
How does that work with
So
investors, right?
Like,
I guess how do you find them? I would imagine they probably find you more than you find them, right?
Yeah.
So the second part of that is like, how does it work as far as like they get 10% or they get, what's their take? You know what I mean? Like, what's that relationship like with investors?
Yeah, I mean, typically, like if you're just like someone like you, or like if you're new and you don't know anybody, you're looking at going through like a hard money lender, they call it. So a hard money lender typically will only make you put down 10 to 15%, maybe 10%. They're also willing to invest in properties that a bank won't. So something that, I'm not talking fire damage or anything like that, but something that needs a little bit more work than what a bank would like to see. A hard money lender is willing to take a look at it. They run their own appraisal. They do their numbers, and they're like, all right, you're buying it for X. We'll fund 100% of the rehab, right? So they'll give you the money to fix it up. If it's a, if it's a $300,000 building, you only have to put $30,000 down, and they'll fund the rehab. But the interest rate might be 12% and 2 points, so it's basically 14% interest. So you're kind of like, shit, I got to get in and out of here because these holding costs, it's expensive,
Right.
to hold on to this property. So if there's $100,000 to be made, yeah, I mean, every month that drags on comes less and less and less, and that's why people think they think it's going to be $80,000 profit, and it ends up being 50. Plus, it takes 3 months longer than they thought. Before you know it, they made $37,000, and Uncle Sam came in and took 20% of it, and you're like, man, fuck that. That wasn't worth it. Real estate don't work. I don't want to do it, and I don't blame people. So that's a tough business. It's just in 2020, it was bomb because it was like you just buy something, slap a little paint down, and and like 77 homeowners come in, first time home buyers all excited, just like no inspection, I'll throw all this money at it. That was a weird time.
Yeah, man. Oh, so Bob and I timed the market pretty well. We bought our house in Mansfield. It was like 2017. And we sold in 2020, 2021, 21. We listed it on a Thursday and we accepted an offer the following Tuesday. It was on the market for 4 days.
That's awesome. Did you get more than you asked?
Yeah, like 30 over asking.
So good.
So
good for you guys.
It was just wild. Like it was quite literally a whirlwind. Like I said, like we worked with our real estate agent who Bob knew. She goes to the gym, which is a fantastic thing. I also love that Bob owns a gym because it's kind of in the same region as me, where I can be like, hey, I need a guy for this. And he's like, oh yeah, I got 3 of those that come to the gym. Like so that part of it's fantastic. But yeah, so we used the real estate agent. She got the house ready. We had to do a couple things like, we cleaned up the kitchen a little bit. Like it was not Formica, but like it was
I don't know. It was a fake countertop that we just painted.
Yeah, we just repainted it. We threw some backsplash up. We redid our bathroom ourselves. Yeah, that was a fucking nightmare. That was that was pretty fun though. We got high on paint fumes and drinking bourbon as we're like painting everything. It was nuts. But so we did the bathroom, we did the kitchen, and literally, like I said, we listed it on a Thursday. They did the 1 weekend of open houses, and we accepted the offer on Tuesday. It was absolutely fucking wild.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, in hindsight, you probably didn't even have to do all that. Right? It's just like
no, we didn't.
Was nuts. I probably would have said that. I would have been like, just fucking throw it up there, see what happens. Because it's like when the market is like that, it just doesn't matter. I don't even know why, right? But that's the thing too, is I don't really try to get too into like why the market does what it does or predicting. I'm just a big believer in like, what are the interest rates today? What is the price of the home? What can I get someone to lease it for? And do the numbers off that. When you start like trying to predict it, guess what's going to happen, you get that, analysis paralysis, But no, I'm glad you guys made out. Did you make some? I presume you made some fucking money, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. That's what's up. Good for you guys.
We more than doubled what we put into it.
Yeah. I mean, I turned 17 to 4 years. Just about.
Yeah, it's probably 3 full. I don't know if we closed on it until like in 2018.
Yeah. So 3 and change.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I turned around and took most of that and put it into the renovations in this house. So we had to obviously do like the whole down payment for this, and we bought it from Amy's mom, so we didn't pay like market price, but we still needed to pay something, right? And then we needed to pay for all the renovations that then went over budget, right? So I think I told you that as we were walking around the house, like we had all these grand plans, and then it's like, oh shit, this pops up, and then it's like, all right, well, I guess we're not redoing the bathroom, and then something else pops up, and it's like, all right, I guess we're not redoing the attic. So
Yeah. Never ends, dude.
yeah. So it's little things here and there, but yeah, I mean, it was nice when I had it
You
at the
guys are
time.
smart. You guys are smart. So you own a gym. How many members do you have? I'm not trying to like pick your pockets, but that's
So
interesting. That's a hard business.
I don't have a traditional gym. I have a gym for athletes. So everything we do is small groups or personal training. So everything's appointment based. It's not like an open access, come do your thing and leave. Everything's like by appointment or groups. So busy times a year, we'll have probably like 125, between 125 and 140. And then slow times a year, because we are more seasonal in that case, will probably be more like 80.
Oh shit, huh? Good for you. You got balls, dude. I respect that. And what do you do to market for that?
We do whatever we can with local teams, coaches, organizations. So it all just depends on what we have. So if it's like a organization in town, we'll do clinics for them, like speed and agility stuff. If it's coaches, we'll just reach out to them and talk to them, like, what can we do for you guys? Like, what are you looking for? Whatever. So we just try to get to like where the athletes are.
That's pretty good. Do you want to be in a perfect world, would you own the real estate? I mean, kind of obvious, but is that like what you're looking to do or no?
If we can find a building that works, yes. I don't
Yeah.
want to rent, but I also like the area we're in, and we're kind of rooted. I mean, not that we couldn't leave, but that's sort of where we are.
Right.
So the real
Right.
estate right there is tough right now.
Yeah, it's coming up with the down payment shit sucks. In a perfect world, right? It might be in like a place where there's like a few different little businesses.
Yep.
Like I always said that I tell that whenever I'm getting my hair cut, and it's like a barber shop, and I'm like, man, you should like buy a little plaza, not a massive one, and then like, so then like the nail salon and the whatever else is in there, there's all these like little bullshit stores, like they're covering your mortgage. So now it's not only do you own the real estate that you'll own one day, but you're sort of like a mini landlord, and all those expenses are covered. So now it's like everything that you pull in is butter, and then eventually you own it. Then you could sell the business someday. Oh, I'll sell the gym to this guy who wants to run it. We got 125 clients. This is what we bring in, blah, blah, blah. You do the EBITDA calculation. Boom, the business is gone. Oh, by the way, I'm your fucking landlord. Here's your lease, right? So then you sort of can, you know what I mean? Hang on to it. So I know it's easier said than done, though, man. Like, I wouldn't know how to do all that.
If we could find the right property, we would have bought one. But
right,
we can't find what we're looking for yet.
Yep.
Yeah, that is a pretty good idea about like the small plaza that has like a bunch of other stuff in it. Like you said, if there's a nail salon and like a small liquor store, right, or something like that, and then you have obviously a unit that's big enough for a gym, right? And then kind of
who does that? You know whose business model that is? Market Basket. Market Basket doesn't sell food. Market Basket is a fucking real estate company. They buy all the real estate. You'll notice that's why there's always a Marshalls and there's always a Starbucks. Almost by every single newer Market Basket, they buy the real estate, they lease to them, which means they can sell food at a cheaper price than all the competitors, and they dominate. It's exactly what they do.
Oh shit! I never knew that.
McDonald's real.
I would say McDonald's does the same thing too, right?
Yep, McDonald's is even bigger, obviously on a bigger scale. That's a franchise model, but yeah, that's like how these companies fucking crush it. And guess what else they're getting help with? Taxes, right? They have it all figured out.
That's wild. I never realized that, because now that I think about it, like whenever you look at like a Market Basket Plaza, like you said, like there's always a Marshalls. There's always like or a TJ Maxx, whatever. Like it's right
TJ
there.
Maxx, Home Goods. Yep, it's that kind of crew. 110 Grill. It's all part of that sort of business model. That's what they do. Yeah, and that's why they always sell things a little bit cheaper. It's not like they're getting it cheaper. It's not. They have it all figured out. I used to shovel fucking snow when I first got sober for a company called Circle K. They had all the Market Basket. They would basically do all the shoveling and plowing for those plazas. Market Basket footing that bill, and it was like unlimited budget. It was like, show up if you're willing to shovel all night. Like, we know you're a complete schmuck and you're probably like banging dope behind the building, but like, we'll give you 25 an hour. If you work 8 hours, we'll pay you for 12. Just like move the snow. It's just like unbelievable. Anything to not get sued. We don't want to slip and fall when we open these doors. It's like, it's so impressive though, the way like they do that. They think bigger, right? Because it's a combination of owning the real estate, so you don't have to pay mortgages, so to speak. Then you get the tax breaks. Then you sell food cheaper, so you get more clients. It's just,
yeah,
they operate differently.
That's interesting, because then also too, now that I think about it, it makes sense they own that building, because you never see Market Baskets move, right? Like, you see Stop and Shops move all the time. Like, a Stop and Shop will move out of a spot and it'll move into like a different spot somewhere, like across town, or in a different, or on the other side of the plaza, like when we were
across a parking lot.
Yeah. But like Shaw's will close up and move somewhere else. Like, they move all the time, but when a Market Basket's there, they're there. And now I understand why, because they own that building.
Yeah, there's a Market Basket. I live in Burlington, Mass, and there's one in Billerica. I live right on the Billerica line, and they closed down. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense. It's one of the original like OG Market Baskets from a long time, and there was one that they actually leased, and eventually they just built one fucking down the street, like, this massive complex. They don't give a shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, because you think about it, right? If you're the landlord, right? If me and Bob own the place, we're like, hey, you think we can just jack up Market Basket's rent like 10 grand? Like, they're not going to go anywhere, are they? And they were like, yep, we will. You know what? That's the straw that broke the camel's back. We're just going to spend like $72 million and like bulldoze the other side of town. Blew that. And you know what's in there now? Probably a Hobby Lobby. You're screwed. You know what I mean? And they'll be gone in 5 years too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The dollar
Spirit
store
Halloween.
selling stuff for
Yeah.
$2. Yeah, Spirit Halloween. That's what you don't want. You own commercial real estate. It's like what you don't want in there.
Yeah, that's how you know, like, you're like, shit, I need someone to come in there.
Commercial real estate got smoked during COVID. Smoked.
Yeah. Yeah, everyone's changing, downsizing. I mean, that's kind of my job that I do now. It's not directing commercial real estate, but like the commercial real estate world affects my job. And we're fucking booked to the gills right now with clients. Like, we have so much fucking work to do over the next year and a half, because it's all businesses that are downsizing. Everyone's switching to like remote. No, people are realizing that no one's in the office, like no one's coming to the office. So it's like, why are we paying $20,000 a month, or why do we have a 12,000 square foot office when no one comes in to use it? And so now everyone's like, oh, we'll just go to the 4,000 square foot office, or we'll get the place that only charges us $8,000 a month instead of 20. Or it's wild. It's a wild thing that's going on right now.
Yep.
But it's going to bounce back, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens when it comes back. Because then it's like, because there's the whole push of like, people don't want to go back to the office, and it's this whole thing. I see it, like I said, I see it with my clients right now. One of them is like this big, it's a pretty big bank. It's one of the biggest in the country. And there's like a big push for like a fully return to office model. And like all the people that work there are pushing back, saying, no, fuck you. Like, we're not coming back full time Monday through Friday. And then like they already started closing some of their other locations and downsizing into their headquarters. And now they're kind of like, they force their own hand, right? Because they can't go back to the old space, because they already closed those ones and they moved people in and they're shifting. It's going to be wild. It's going to be interesting to watch, see how this shit kind of all plays out.
Yeah, it is interesting. There's a lot in this Burlington area. There's tons of these kind of like towns with heavy on like Waltham, Mass is another one.
I get a lot of clients in Waltham too. It's all tech companies and pharma, and
they got screwed. You know what I mean? Everyone's working from home. There's these massive, right, 150,000 square foot or more. 800,000 square foot buildings and they're just like empty, bro, because everyone's working from home. And you know what I mean? It's just unbelievable. That's what's so cool about the world, though, is like you just never know. Like those stupid companies that make those stupid masks. Like, who would have thought? Like, wow, business fucking went through the roof. You know, you just never know what's gonna happen. The world is so crazy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Or like, who knew like the one companies that made like whatever type of vaccines, right? Like vaccines have been around for, I don't know, what, like 100+ years, right? But like
Right.
there was this one kind that was made, and now they made literally tens of billions of dollars off of this one kind of thing. You know, it's like, that's just fucking wild.
That's why there's so much opportunity for young people out there. I mean, you guys are young too, just like me, like, but definitely people in their 20s. There's so much opportunity now. I hear way too much bitching going on in this world. There is a lot of fuckery going on nowadays, but in the market's volatile, but there's so much opportunity of so much access. Like there's been some pretty good tidbits from us, like just on this one podcast, and there's a gazillion podcasts on YouTube, and access to investors and access to this information, really. So I see so many people, they get like depressed and down because, I mean, the cost of living is through the roof. I don't deny it, but there's a lot of opportunity now. You can make more money with your iPhone than people used to make their whole life, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you went to Lowell, right?
I dropped out, yeah, but I did go there for 2 years.
So, I mean, there you go right there, right? Like you don't need that traditional education either, right? Like I think that's kind of the way the world is going. Like you just said, like you can go on YouTube. Like you can learn whatever you need to do on YouTube and books, right? Read a couple books, or listen to some audio books if you don't want to read them. Yeah, I hear you what you're saying there about people that are bitching, being like, "Oh, I can't figure anything out," and it's like, cool, man. Like you spend $60,000 a year to go to business school, right? To get your MBA. So in 2 years, like you have an MBA from Bentley University, but it just cost you $120,000 for that MBA. So like now what the fuck are you going to do, right? Because you got $120,000 in debt just from your master's degree, never mind, whatever you did for undergrad. So it's you could have got the same information on YouTube and in books.
It's true. It's true. The world doesn't care about your degrees. The world doesn't care. It cares about your value to the marketplace. And that's what kids need to understand. Learn, get your fucking skills up. You can get so much done. People grossly overestimate what they can get done in 1 year, and they grossly underestimate what they can get done in 5. It's an eternity if you're doing the right things. You can build $1 million businesses in 10, forget about it. But yeah, your value to the marketplace. Even look at a company like Right Window. You don't need a degree to work there. They don't care. If you go out and you sell a $28,000 job, they have their gross margins. You get paid a commission based on what they make. They don't care if it took a half hour. They don't care if we met for an hour and a half and then I had to come back a week and a half later. If you ended up calling me back and saying I'm buying $6,000 worth of windows, then that drastically affects what I get paid, because it's all based on the value to the marketplace. So you can walk in there and sell $180,000 worth of product and make thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars in 2 seconds. Yeah. Or you can sell nothing and make nothing, right? He owns the gyms. Like, what's the value to the marketplace? How many people come in and pay, and maybe they try to upsell protein powders and all this stuff. It's all about value, and the time portion of it is, how much do you get paid per hour? There's nothing wrong with that, but it's kind of skewed and it doesn't really make sense. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I can see that. Like you said, people like to underestimate, the overestimate. And I think the other thing too, I mean, myself included, don't get me wrong, I do love to bitch, but I think that I think people just like bitching and complaining a lot about nothing, really.
Yeah, we all do it, including me. If my wife heard me say that, she'd be like, "Yeah, we all bitch and moan, But that's why
that's what I have the podcast for, right? So I can bitch and complain to the 75 people that listen.
No, I bitch and moan and complain too, but 100% personal responsibility, and that's the best way to do it. Whose fault is it that I was a drug addict? Me. Whose fault is it that I got out of it? Me. Like, whose fault is it when I was poor? Me. Whose fault is it if I'm a millionaire? Me. Like, I'm a big believer in that, because then you can feel proud of yourself, but also never forget the luck. Never forget you need luck. It's always the people who do the right thing and put themselves in there ready for opportunities that always seem to get lucky. Yeah. That does seem to go that way.
Yeah.
So
All right. So typically, like, you know, right around when we get to the end of the show, we do this thing called final thoughts, right? Like it's so it can be literally anything. It can be out of left field. It can have nothing to do with anything that we talked about. Like we spend most of the time talking about, real estate and financial stuff. My final thought today, I'll have to pull it up, but I think it's about like an ultrasound, right? Like so it doesn't have anything to do with anything. You can either go first, because you're the guest, we can either go first, or we can I was gonna say Bob can go first. You can kind of see and you can think about something.
Got it.
I can finally see why Italian grandmothers cooked so much fucking food all the time. And I know I texted this to the group. I was here. Michaela left on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
It was just me and the dog. And I grossly overcooked and overate accordingly, obviously. I don't know how it happened, but somehow in my math in my head, when I went to the store, I was like, oh, I need all this food. Like I'm gonna go hungry, because I couldn't possibly just get back in my car to go to another store to get my own food to cook, or to have someone cook it for me and pick it up. And then in which case, no issue there. But yeah, once I got rolling, I ended up making, if I needed 4 meals a day or 4 servings of food a day, I must have made like 6, and 5. And I'm just like sitting there eating. I'm like, well, there's no sense in saving this, because I'm just going to have more food later. So I might as well just eat it now. I'm sitting there like, not hungry, but I got to eat this because I defrosted it. So now it's going to go bad. So it starts to make a little bit more sense how those grandmas did it.
Yeah, I could see that, where it's like, why'd you make all this food?
I don't know. I had it.
I had it.
I had it and I was cooking.
All right. I like it. Dan, you come up with a final thought? Or you want me to go?
You go.
All right. So my final thought is, like I said, about an ultrasound. So the other day, was it like last Tuesday? We went to get an ultrasound. So we're like halfway through, I think, right? Yeah, we're like 21 weeks ish. So we had to do like the anatomy ultrasound or whatever. Dude, shit is wild. So, like I said, Amy's like 21 weeks pregnant, roughly, right? Like halfway through, right? It takes 40 weeks, all that yada yada, whatever. So they do the ultrasound and they're going through, and like I'm literally sitting there and I go, holy shit, like that's the spine. And the ultrasound tech is like, yeah. And she's like going around. She's like, look, these are the hands. And you can see like hands. And then she goes like to the feet. You can see all the feet. And she's like going through. And I'm like, yo, what the fuck, dude? Like this thing's like fully formed. Like, again, it's the first kid, right? Like, I don't understand anything. All I know is it takes 40 weeks to have a baby. And here we are at 21 weeks. And I'm like, yo, this thing's like ready to go. Like, what the fuck are we doing for the next 20 weeks? Like, other than like, I guess just getting a little bit bigger, right? Like what's going on? But it's wild that like, I don't know. It was just for some reason, it just like blew my mind. Like the bones are like, you can see the bones in the ultrasound, right? Like you can see like the individual vertebrae in the like the fucking the bones in the hands, right? In the arms and shit. And I'm just like, it just blew my mind. And I was like, this is wild. So I asked the ultrasound tech too, and I was like, so like, what's not ready to go right now? Like what hasn't been formed? And she was like, oh, the lungs. Like the lungs are the last thing. And I go, I guess that makes sense because you don't need them until you're actually born, right? I think somewhere around 30 weeks, I think, is when they develop. So it's just wild. Like I said, I know you've been through it twice, but again, it's my first time. So it's just kind of fucking nuts. The other thing too, the one thing that people like don't really explain is that you don't get that many fucking ultrasounds. Like you think, right? Like, oh, you're pregnant, like you're gonna have a baby. You're thinking like, oh, you go get an ultrasound like every week, right? Like, oh, let's go, let's see what the baby. No, this is like I think this was like our second or third ultrasound, and we're halfway through the pregnancy. And like I have no idea when the next one even is. So it's one of those things that like kind of one of those like no one really tells you. And then also, like I said, it just kind of blew my mind that like basically everything in this baby is developed.
It's exciting times, man. Like, I'm happy for you guys. Like, that's the best part, honestly. The pregnancy, it's a long process and all that, but man,
Yeah.
it's fun and it's exciting. And when you first bring, I think I talked to you about that in your house. I'm like,
Yeah.
man, it's so, like you know, you go through, the baby's born, you rip the baby out, or they do, whatever. It's wild, and then you're hanging out at the hospital, and then you get in that car, man. You look in the rear view, and you see this little fucking baby, and you're like, holy shit, like this is mine, and that baby's coming with you everywhere forever, essentially. You know,
Yeah. At
it's
least for 18 years.
18 is the 25 is the new 18. Everybody's broke when they're 19, 20 years old. You know. No, that was good. I guess for my final thought, and I'm actually shocked this didn't get brought up, but it was just right before we hopped on. The Celtics are fucking trash, and they're not winning. They're not going to win the NBA Finals. It was so fun to watch that game and be like, "Oh my god, who sucks more?" Like who the 76ers are terrible at finishing. You know, like they're terrible, and it was just a battle of like who can suck more, and we were able to pull it out. So in traditional Celtics fashion.
Yeah, I did. I caught the end of that game, so I saw right on they went on like a 14-2 run or something like that, 14-4 run. Whatever, they came back, they had the lead, then they blew it, and then right at the end of regulation, Marcus fucking Smart tries to take a three, and obviously misses it, and they go to overtime, and then obviously the rest is history. But yeah, no, I hear you. So the way you're talking about the Celtics is exactly how we felt about the Bruins.
That was so interesting to me because I'm not a huge hockey fan. Like I am. I mean, I'm a Bruins fan. I'm from here, but hockey's just not my. And I'm like, man, that's obviously kind of being a, casual. It's like the Bruins are going to smoke them, and then that's why that podcast, the one I listened to when you first talked about me, this kid was like, oh, the Bruins are going to lose in 6 next series, blah 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 blah, and I'm like, yeah, we'll see. And like, they couldn't even make it out of that way. It was just shocking to me. How did you know?
Well, a lot of it is I guess I've seen them year after year not meet expectations, and they never there was one year they surpassed expectations, and that was 2011. So I just know enough not to be fooled. Like I will not let that fucking organization fucking get me. No way. I will not get got by them. Fuck that.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm losing faith in the Celtics though. Like they're great. They show signs of greatness, but like I don't know, man. They just always find a way to blow it. They do. They do.
Yeah.
Like that was so Celtics. Last second, Harden hits a big shot. Okay, we got some super stuff. Let's go. Marcus Smart missed it at the end. We don't even get a fucking shot off. It's like so standard of this team. I'm just getting tired of it.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think I watched like the last 4 or 5 minutes, but like before going into overtime. I don't think Jaylen Brown touched the ball once. And it's like he's arguably the best player on the team, right? I mean, obviously everyone's going to go to Tatum, but people can have the debate, not me. Like I don't know basketball well enough, but like I know people are debating between Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. It's like you're going to tell me that like with 15 seconds to go in regulation on a tie game, Marcus Smart is the dude that you got throwing the three up, and Jaylen Brown hasn't touched the ball in 4 minutes.
Right. Yeah, I mean, Jason Tatum, 2 points at halftime. Really, dude? I don't know. I just don't. And then he comes out and he scores 22, 24 in the second half, and we just fall short. He missed some big free throws. It happens. We were up 105, 100. But no, it's just like even like Philly, like they sucked too at the end of the game. Like a lot of bad shots. Embiid got swatted by Al 4 times in the last 4 minutes of the game. It's like, dude, you're trash. You know what I mean? Like it was. And then I remember, and I forget what it was, game 2 or whatever, where we blew them out, or maybe I forget what game it was. They had a big 5-second violation, Philly, like towards the end of the game. Just like really, like I'm not an NBA. I suck at basketball. Let's call a spade here. And in a clutch moment, I'm going to throw the ball in. I'm going to throw it up, even if I throw it away. I'm not just going to sit there. So it's just interesting to watch two teams just both kind of like choke at the end, but they made a big shot. Harden made the big shot, and we just don't seem to have a guy like even Paul Pierce. Jason Tatum is better than Paul Pierce, I think, overall.
Yeah.
But like Pierce could like get a bucket when it matters. We don't really have someone who does that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a pretty solid point. Like they don't have that like clutch like closer, right? Like that guy that is going to hit that shot.
Yeah, or at least that we want to take it. You know, it's like Jaylen Brown's great, but like Jaylen Brown, if you're up 2 and Jaylen Brown's got the ball at the end of the game, fucking foul him. He ain't gonna make 2. He's not making 2 when it matters from the free throw line. We all know that. It's like, you know what I mean? He'll make them all game long, but when it matters, and the only guy who wants to pull is Marcus Smart, and I like Marcus Smart, but like, fuck, man, you know?
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right. Well, that's gonna do it for us for this episode. We got some sponsors though. We got to thank them. Dan, do you like to sleep?
Oh God,
I love to sleep. I love to sleep.
How do you sleep? You sleep good?
Like I sleep like garbage, and just like you're about to. I got little babies, dude.
Yeah. So there's this stuff called Moon Brew. You can go to www.moonbrew.com. And it's a really stupid promo code. It's been a running joke over the last like 6 podcast episodes. I've been trying to change it, but the promo code is Jared, Jared, 16159. The dumbest fucking thing ever.
Makes it hard. Yeah.
It makes it like, so people like don't want to use it, right? Like if I was just listening to this podcast and I heard the jackass who runs the show be like, oh, this is the promo code. It's Jared 16159. I'd be like, I'm not using that fucking promo code. Like you're a jackass. Like that's
what's it do?
Stupid. So it gets you 10% off. On
well, no, that I figured that. What's Moon Brew
product too?
So it's a nighttime tea, right? So it's got I forget the type of magnesium, but it's got 2 different types of magnesium in it, 3 and 8. So magnesium 3 and 8 and magnesium citrate, which are like the 2 best kinds you can get. It's got L-theanine, which is like a precursor to I don't know, some protein that helps you sleep. I don't know. I had this all down, but I forget it now. But so I historically sleep like shit, right? Like I've never been a good sleeper for years now. But I started taking it recently, and it actually makes me sleep a lot better. So truthfully, I do like it. You know, it's not, I wouldn't peddle a product that I didn't like, right? But so I think it's worth it, right? Buy it, don't, whatever. It is what it is. It's the promo code, right? But
no, I'll buy it.
Jared 16159, dumbest fucking thing ever. I emailed them like 3 times to be like, hey, can we make this like Sarcasm Pod or like something? Because the only information they ask is your first name, last name, email address when you sign up for the affiliate code. And so like they just base the promo code off of your first name. And I was like, well, if I had known that, I would have just typed in Sarcasm Speaks as my first name or something. You know what I mean? So I don't know. They don't want to respond to my emails either when I ask them to change it. So
hold on. I believe this Moon Brew is good, but I'm gonna ask one question before we hop off and tell me the truth. You said I wouldn't do it. If this stuff sucked, but they paid you $10,000 a month, would you still talk about it?
No.
Yeah, you would.
How bad does it suck?
Yeah, how bad does it suck?
No, obviously not like, gives you lung cancer. I know you guys like that. You got a little baby on the way. You just finance those windows. It's like, you know what? It tastes like garbage, but no, I'm sure the Moon Brew's good. But no, I talk about.
Well, no, so the taste isn't on. The taste is very bitter. I said that before. You
gotta add honey to it.
You gotta add honey to it. Honey makes it a lot better. The taste itself, again, it's bitter. It's not awesome. But I don't drink it for the taste. I drink it for what it does. So I get through it. So yeah, shout out to Moon Brew over there. Also shout out to grillyourassoff.com, the world's best seasonings. Uses promo code Sarcasm Pod. That actually makes sense. And that gets 10% off your order every single time you check out over there, grillyourassoff.com. And the last one is mybookie.com. Use the same promo code Sarcasm Pod when you sign up. And they'll double your first deposit up to $1,000. So
nice.
That's them. So why don't you tell everybody where they can find you?
Yeah, I mean, you can find me. I got Daniel Michael Murphy on Instagram, Daniel Michael Murphy 1 on TikTok. I got some TikToks that have blown up recently. I got some hate on there. It's if you. I put up a podcast and some feminists got very upset. Not a podcast, but TikTok. And it went, for me, viral. It's all relative, right? But when you open your TikTok and there's 3,000 comments, all negative, you're like, oh boy, what did I do?
That's awesome. That's the best kind.
There was a lot, but it was yeah, no, and then obviously the Unapologetically Me podcast. I've been busy. I haven't posted one in a couple of weeks. I got to get back at it and be more consistent. I know John had a death in the family, so it was a little bit difficult for a while. But yeah, I mean, we talk real estate, we shoot the shit. It's a little more vulgar than this one. I'm kind of, out there, but it's nice. We got a nice studio, got a good setup. You guys are welcome to come by if you want to drive up 95 in traffic. It's in Pelham, New Hampshire, but anyone can come by. We got like a nice like in studio place. You guys can get drunk as shit. I don't care. Have fun.
That would be fun. I mean, I don't know about the getting home part afterwards, but
I'll Uber you home. You know what I mean? It's all good. It's all good.
You gotta get a property up near there, rent it out. It's have the people come on the show, right? And then you have them stay in your property right there.
Could do that. I know I got to get it big enough. It's hard. I got some traction on TikTok. I was posting consistently for a while, and you get to like 0 to like 3,500 followers quick, but it's like a job, man. It's like a job, like posting that stuff every day. It's tough.
Yeah, it is. I'm notoriously awful at keeping up with the Instagram because Bob runs our Twitter, which is sarcasm_speaks, by the way, for those listening and watching. And I run the Instagram, which is Sarcasm Speaks Pod. I suck at it. Like, I'm not even going to lie, right? Like, I'm not good. Like, I used to be way better at it. I used to post all the time as part of that. It's not a real excuse, but my last job was like way less of a job. just what it was. My job now is a lot more like demanding. Even still, it's not super demanding, but I actually have work to do during the day. My last job, I would like sit around and do nothing. So I just don't. I suck at it, right? Like, I don't have any real excuses. It's just I haven't been good at running the Instagram. But it's hard, right? The social media, because if you do want it to grow and you do want it to be big, it's a job in and of itself, right? You got to post every single day. So it's a lot.
Doable, but that's tough.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you guys having me on. It was a good time. I'd be happy to do this again whenever.
Yeah, absolutely. You're always welcome.
Yeah, we can shoot the shit about more stuff than just my stupid real estate. Although hopefully some good tidbits for people. Some good tidbits for people out there. It can be done. Go get rich. What else you doing? I'm sure it's mostly young men watching this. Something tells me there's not a bunch of sexy girls watching us. It's young men. Go out, fucking work hard, grind, get rich. That's what I'm about. Have babies. That's what I do. Don't do drugs, Thank you, guys.
All right. Thanks, Dan.
Have a good one.
Thanks. See ya. All right. So again, that was Dan Murphy, my window guy. Shout out to him. Shout out to Right Window. You can find him again, like you said, on the Unapologetically Me podcast. I believe, I don't want to speak for him. I should have asked him. But I think it's anywhere you can find podcasts. I listen to him on Spotify, just because I use Spotify for everything, podcasts and music. But I'm sure he's also on Apple and all that shit too. So we covered the bases with the sponsors. We told you about the social medias too already. So if you're watching on YouTube again, or you're listening wherever you're at, don't forget to subscribe, rate, review, like us, tell everybody you know about the show. We drifted off the map in Missouri, but we kicked it up even more in Virginia and California. So I don't know if I don't know who would move from Missouri to California. It seems like a really bad move, but yeah, to keep telling everybody you know about the show. And I guess, like I said, we lost the people in Missouri, but we picked them up, like I said, in Virginia, like I said, California, Rhode Island. Now we got a few. So, shout out to all you guys out there, but keep spreading the word. So until next time, good night, everybody.